From the god of war Ares turning on his fellow old gods, to Billy Batson being turned away by his own mom. These are the DCEU's most shocking betrayals of all time, kicking things off with what might be DCEU's oldest big betrayal, which we learned about in Wonder Woman's first ever big screen outing. When Diana was a little girl, her mom told her about how Amazonians like her were created, and she also gave us our first look at Ares, the movie's villain. Now you can imagine that the god of war is a bad dude, and he proved that by trying to plot the destruction of humanity. When the other old gods tried to stop him, Ares turned on them pretty dang hard, killing every single one of them and sparing only Zeus. Not only did Ares prove that he's the worst, he made it easier for himself to push humans to wage war against each other, while also exposing the Earth to a lot of risks by taking out its strongest protectors. With guys like Zod and Steppenwolf showing up to destroy the Earth, and with someone like Darkseid waiting in the wings, it would have been nice if the powerful old gods were around to help Earth fight them off. By killing them, Ares basically doomed the world, and it's only thanks to the Justice League that humanity can breathe a sigh of relief. Speaking of Zod, he stabbed his fellow Kryptonians in the back too. In a way, this might be the betrayal that started off the DCEU. There was a time when General Zod was an old buddy of Jor-El's, but that changed when Jor-El dove headfirst into science and Zod dove headfirst into space Nazism. Krypton used to be ruled by a council of 5, who were maybe not doing the best job of running the planet, especially since the planet was about to blow up and they had no idea how to save it. Zod decided to seize control of the dying planet and overthrew the council of 5. But the real betrayal came when he found out that Jor-El was sending his son off the planet. Angry that Jor-El didn't have his back, Zod stabbed and killed him, setting him down the road to becoming a villain. Superman's big battle with Zod in Metropolis was framed by Zack Snyder as an inciting incident for the Snyderverse. Since it spurred Batman and Wonder Woman into stepping into the spotlight, Zod's actions on Krypton were really important in the grand scheme of things. Krypton itself, on the other hand, is just a footnote in the history of the universe. Zod isn't the only treacherous villain Superman faced in the DCEU, because we can't forget about what Lex Luthor did to Mercy. Now, Mercy wasn't a god, and her betrayal didn't involve an exploding planet, but this one still stings pretty bad. A guy like Lex Luthor needs people who can take care of business, and Mercy was one of those people, acting basically as his right-hand girl. Throughout the events of Batman v Superman, Mercy can be seen spying on events where Lex can't go. And she's clearly very committed to his mission of defeating that pesky Superman. But putting yourself in the orbit of a guy like Lex is risky business, especially if we're talking about the deranged version we saw in the DCEU. It turns out that Lex was keeping secrets from his assistant, the big one being his planned bombing of Congress. At the big congressional hearing, he just so happens to be unavailable and sends Mercy in his place, probably to avoid causing any suspicions. He sent Mercy to Congress, knowing full well that he was planning on blowing the place up and that she'd die in the explosion. I guess she found that Lex has no mercy. What makes this so bad is that Lex could have sent anyone from his huge company to take his place, but the fact that he sent his most trusted assistant shows that he never cared about her as much as she may have cared about him. Is that the worst betrayal on this list? Well, Amanda Waller coldly killed off an entire team. In the 2016 Suicide Squad movie, Amanda assembled her gang of misfits and weirdos for the first time, forming some kind of suicide squad and strapping them with exploding collars. The team's first outing happened to involve extracting someone from the city that the Enchantress had taken over, and they found out eventually that their target was none other than Waller herself. She and her team were in the city when things went haywire, and she brought in Task Force X to bail her out. What's messed up about her scheme is that her team didn't get to escape with her, even though they were guarding her with their lives and providing other kinds of technical support. But when it was time to go, she shot them down, just to cover up her own role in what the Enchantress had done, much like with Lex Luthor. Her murder of her team was important for showing us who Waller really is, and we got to see that again in the Suicide Squad, in which she sent in a new dummy squad of misfits and weirdos to get wrecked on the beaches of Corto Maltese. So, That's 2 times people have died because they were loyal to the wrong person, and Harley Quinn was nearly the 3rd. Suicide Squad showed us Harley's origins, but we all know how it goes, don't we? Harleen Quinzel was a psychiatrist who was seduced by the Joker, though in the DCEU, she must have really seen something in him to overlook those tattoos. As the movie goes on, we learn more about Harley through flashbacks, and there's no doubt that she's super loyal to Joker, even though he mistreats her. Eventually, we get to see how Harley ended up in Belle Reve in the first place, with her and her boo in a car chase with Batman. The betrayal wasn't necessarily that Joker crashed the car into the water, but it was pretty messed up that he managed to escape but left her behind to drown. You can't even argue that he knew Batman would save her, because this is Batfleck we're talking about, and he really had no chill when it came to the bad guys. Though Joker tries to reunite with her over the course of the movie, I couldn't help but want to reach into the screen and shake Harley's shoulders, asking her to think for 1 second. Eventually, she is freed from the Joker's grasp, which brings me to Birds of Prey. With all the villainous betrayals on this list, I figured we'd throw in a good one just once. The villain of this movie is the Black Mask, who's a total nut now and is hunting down a little girl. But even before he took a turn for the worse, Roman Sionis was the head of a criminal empire. But one person whose loyalty Roman might have counted on was Dinah Lance, since he gave her a job singing at his lounge and driving him around, which allowed her to escape a life of poverty. And yet she turns on Roman and starts telling on him to Renee Montoya, which totally drives Roman up the wall. You could say that Dinah made the situation worse, because Roman became crazy and vengeful because of the betrayal, but she deserves credit for doing it for the right reasons. The other option was to help Roman kidnap a young girl and extract diamonds from her belly, which would make Dinah a villain. I've got one last DCEU betrayal today, and it might just be the most heartbreaking one, though it comes from one of the lighter movies in this franchise. You might have forgotten that Shazam had a really tragic scene. Or maybe you, like most people, didn't watch it, but it has to do with Billy Batson and his relationship with his family. Like in the comics, Billy lives in a foster home, but he wasn't happy with this arrangement at first. Now that he's old enough to summon the power of a wizard by saying a single word, he's bent on tracking down his real family, searching far and wide for his real mom. Midway through the movie, he does manage to track her down, but it turns out that she abandoned him on purpose. Mrs. Batson felt that she wasn't good enough to be a young mother, and so she decided she doesn't want Billy to be her problem anymore, leaving him by himself at a carnival. Being rejected by his real mom to his face was an important part of Billy's character arc, because as tragic as it is, it allowed him to accept his foster family as his real family. This became even more heartwarming when the kids all gained Shazam powers, which set them up as a crime-fighting team for the sequel. From Billy Batson being betrayed by his mom, to Ares proving his God of War bona fides, to the old gods, those were the DCEU's most shocking betrayals of all time.